Welcome to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Got another good show lined up for you this week, and I know you'll think so after viewing it. It's a clip show, our best of. For all the guests we've had, we've got some fantastic interviews. If you've missed them the first time they aired, we're going to rerun them for you tonight. And also, if you have seen them, enjoy them again. So thanks for tuning in. I know you'll enjoy it. And here we go with Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara.
His hands were hard and stained with dirt from breaking ground. He's the heartbeat of the heartland, and everybody knows if a ship ever comes in, it's coming in and rolls. He'll make it roll from sun up to sundown. He knows how to make Mother Nature come around with a saddle full of faith in fields full of love. He'll give it hell, and with a little help from above, he'll make it grow. They'll make it grow.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we are participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. I'm pleased, as you can see, the guy on the screen joining me here, Marvin McNutt, Iowa Hawkeye all-time leading receiver. Marvin and I have done many interviews in the past for a bowl viewing party show. We've been on radio together, and now our first time on TV together. And Marvin, you've probably seen around the Cedar Rapids area on TV on other shows. But Marvin is now the sports director at the CR Metro YMCAs. Again, Marvin, it is great to see you, my friend. How's everything going with you? And thanks for joining us.
Man, it's going good. I'm blessed. I can't complain at all. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure as always. And, you know, I was telling you a story off the air, regaling you and what a story you had told me, and I want to share it with the listeners as you're smiling with me here. And we had an appearance I had arranged a couple of years ago with former Cub great Bob Dernier and former Kansas City Royal great Willie Wilson, and you came to join us for a signing, so we thought we'd have a Royal, a Cub, and then a Hawkeye. And you came down to Burlington for a Burlington Bees game, and you warmed up. You said, hey, Dave, before we get started, you don't mind if I take a couple of cuts at the plate and take a couple of throws? And is there a mid around here? So, and my two former major leaguers leaned over the fence and watched you play, and they were like, Dave, this guy may have played the wrong sport. So besides coming into Iowa as a left-handed quarterback, and then you ended being the Iowa all-time leading receiver, you were also a baseball guy. So I'm going to step out of the way and let you tell that story, please.
Yeah, so growing up, man, honestly, first sport I fell in love with was baseball and basketball. I came out and watched my dad play softball and tell me stories about him playing against Bernard Gilkey and as a young kid. And then I was a young kid going into the barbershop and would see Ozzie Smith come in all the time and would just, kind of be in awe at the wig, and so baseball was a huge passion of mine. And so I played center, first base, and outfield, and almost got drafted to go to play baseball even after I committed to the University of Iowa, as well as basketball was a really big, big piece to who I am. I mean, I was a nominated McDonald All-American as a point guard for my AAU basketball team. So when it comes down to sports, man, it felt like for me, really any path I chose. I mean, I was 4 years old and told my mom that I'll be the first person to play all three major sports. So, I mean, I knew sports was which way I wanted to take it going out of high school.
I love that. Deion Sanders wasn't enough to get two. You needed all three. And the intriguing thing to that is, and again, you're from the St. Louis area and came to the Iowa Hawkeyes, but it wasn't that easy for you to get into football with your mom allowing that. So talk about that little exchange you had with your mom and the coach. I love that story too.
Yeah, well, so I had asthma. And so my mom always felt that really I wasn't really the kid to play football. And so actually during my freshman year in high school, I was out playing football on our PE class. And the high school football coach was my PE coach. And he saw me kind of moving around and killing the kids. And he kind of came to me and said, hey, why aren't you playing football? He saw me throw the kickoff through the uprights. And so I told him, Mom really doesn't want me to play. Well, sure enough, he tells the baseball coach and his offensive coordinator, who was the JV baseball coach at the time. And I moved up there and was playing for him during that week. And so he brought the football out to baseball practice and had me throw to a few of the guys that were going to be playing on the varsity team next year. And one of the guys was also the other quarterback. And he told me, hey, teach him how to throw a ball real quick. And I threw a few out and he looked at me and said, yeah, you're playing football next year. So then we get to the summer and one of my really good friends actually had passed. And he kind of his whole time, he said, hey, Marv, you should go out and play. So with his spirit and heart, really, I told myself, no, I'm playing football. And sure enough, that was what I went to college for.
Funny how things work out, and boy, did it work out for you. 6th-round draft pick, and I know you put that on social media last week, the 9-year anniversary of you being drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, and I want to get into that story in just a little bit. But before we get there, let's cover your time at the Iowa Hawkeyes. You come in as a left-handed quarterback, as we talked about, and I'll tell you, between your story, James Vandenberg, Tristan Wirfs, Ike Budker, all these former Hawkeyes we've had on this show have talked about you come in as one thing, but then they have a path for you, and the Hawkeyes do. Talk about your transition from quarterback into wide receiver and how successful that was for you.
Man, it was actually during my freshman year, I bounced back from wide receiver and quarterback on the scout team a lot because we had another quarterback and we just need bodies that could actually do it. So Tyler Sash and myself actually would play wide receiver and kind of dominate our defense during that year. Well, we got to the year after, as it was kind of a quarterback battle between myself, Jay Christensen, and Rick Stanzi. And me being the young guy in the room, we had, I think, probably one of the worst years as well off the field. So we lost probably, I think, 3 receivers to off the field incidents, and really good ones at that. And so coach kind of looked around. We got Eric Campbell became our wide receivers coach. So one day we're at practice, kind of similar story, and I'm catching a football one-handed back from Rick and throwing it back. And he kind of comes and stares at me for a little bit, kind of looks me up and down. Hey, big fella, where you from? I said, St. Louis. He kind of rubbed his face like, all right. He said, well, whenever you're ready to make some money and play football, come talk to me. So sure, about 2 weeks later, we're in the middle of that Sean Green's year. And I get a call coming to the office thinking I'm in trouble, like I did something wrong. And for sure, they sat me down. I was like, hey, we're thinking about moving you to wide receiver. What do you think about that? How do you feel? And I was a little bit irritated at the time, too, because I was like, I still think the quarterback is what I can do. And but at the same time, my goal was like, hey, I want to go play in the NFL. I want to have an opportunity to play with my brothers that are out here that I work with all the time, and I want to be here. So that was the thing. I didn't want to transfer, and I said, I'll try it out. Well, luck have it, it worked out.
Just a little bit. Again, Iowa Hawkeye all-time leading receiver. But, when you talk about making the transition to that and having the mindset, the team-oriented mindset that you have and from, baseball to basketball to football. And we talked with Parker Hesse about this, and he said the same thing you said, and Ike Budker. It's always amazing to me when you former players talk about, I got called into the office and thought, what did I do wrong? I'm in trouble. And they're just like, no, we want to look at you at a position change, and man, did it work out for you. So let's talk about your career at Iowa. And again, playing, it's always the topic of the year, it seems like. Even if there's an incumbent quarterback coming back, we have a quarterback controversy, or people want to try to stir that up with the spring practice, open spring practice last Saturday between Deuce Hogan, Alex Padilla, and of course, Spencer Petras. So my comment or questions to you is I talked this about Jordan Canzeri last week, and Jordan was just a little while after you, but you had the transition from Ricky Stanzi, and then Rick was injured, James Vandenberg, then Ricky came back, and then with James Vandenberg after Ricky left. Talk about that, not just changing positions from, throwing the ball to catching the ball, but also coming from a different quarterback. Let's talk about that if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, it definitely is a different type of ball you get. Rick, had a little bit of a cuff the way he kind of came out of his hand. And so his spiral was a little different. Whereas James, he flicks it at you and it hits a little different. And also just the types of balls they throw, James, man, I really think didn't get enough credit for how tight of a spiral and how well he threw the football. He was so nice, but again, his time kind of ended a little poorly just due to, I think, switching of the offensive coordinators. But again, you have the two different types of people that you have to get used to, in a sense, from going. But the one thing that me and James got early was we had a lot of time together because he was the backup quarterback during Rick's tenure, and I was the young guy in the group. So I would a lot of times still get work with James a lot. And just the fact that for me, it didn't, I told myself it didn't who it's coming from, man. I'm going to be in the spot that you need me to be. You just make sure you get it to me.
I love that. So when you take a look at this and the success you had, the bowl games and all the different experiences at Iowa, and again, we talked to Jordan Kanziri about this last week with the fans at Iowa and the great reception you get, and now you're back in the Cedar Rapids area with your wife and kids, and again, sports director at the Cedar Rapids YMCA or the Cedar Rapids Metro YMCAs. And I would ask you this, talk to us, if you would, about your experience being drafted, what a thrill it was. The NFL career didn't become what you wanted it to be, but you've been a former Arena League coach in Cedar Rapids. You've always kept your toe in the water in Eastern Iowa. So let's talk about, your end of your career at Iowa, being drafted, and then now being in Cedar Rapids and all the things you've got going on. Still always in and around sports, Marvin. I love it.
Honestly, it was one of those things when I came out as my senior year, obviously it's decorated senior season. I came out thinking, no receiver really had done what I've done out of the University of Iowa. So I thought that draft process was going to be a lot easier in a sense. And kind of looking back on it, for me, I'm a little bit upset at myself still on the topic of, how hard did you really work at it when you were in that combine experience, when you were in the, not even after, really more so after the combine, because I performed pretty well at the combine. And really, in that process, you still also are looking at yourself, because I honestly think I had got called from the Rams, and right before the draft, I believe they were going to take me with their first pick, which was the first pick in the second round. They ended up going with a guy that I played with in the Senior Bowl, Brian Quick. And so part of it was you're going through this process and you're seeing all these different names with guys that you beat out in stats all year long. You see guys that you went up against all year and have dominated for 4 years going in front of you. So for me, I was angry a lot during my draft process, just because I'm thinking, what are they seeing that I didn't do? I played in the big games. I played in the big conference. I dominated that conference. And so part of it, I had other things in my mind that I was holding on to. But then at the same time, once somebody came, well, hey, we want you, because at the time, I think when I was getting called for my draft process, I was waiting around and hanging out with my now wife in my room. And all of a sudden I get a call from Chicago first. And so Chicago calls me and I'm thinking, okay, we're about to go to Chicago. What's happening? They call me like, hey, we're thinking about getting you with our next pick. We know the draft didn't go as well as you thought it was. But we also had you listed in the second and third round. So we know how sometimes these draft goes depending on what receivers or what teams need. But we'd like to take you with our next pick. And I'm thinking, oh, so wait, you haven't drafted me? Right in the middle of that call, I get a number from Pittsburgh. So I'm thinking it's the Pittsburgh Steelers calling me. And so I answer the phone and it's Greg Castillo's dad calling me. It's like, hey, Marvin, I got Coach Reed here with Philadelphia Eagles. We want to talk to you for a minute. So sure enough, Coach Reed gets on the phone and Coach Andy Reid, and he's like, hey, Marvin, just want to let you know, do you want to be a Philadelphia Eagle? And right in that moment, man, all the emotions, all the chills, all the work that you put in, man, just came out, and start crying and hugging my family. They hear it downstairs. They start running upstairs and hug me and different things. And it's one of the greatest feelings in the world that somebody wants you and believes in your ability to be on that football field. So I'm forever grateful again for that organization, for Coach Reed, Coach Castillo, all those coaches, Howie, and everybody. Although it didn't work out after that first year once Coach Kelly came in, at the end of the day, you just want an opportunity to show somebody you can do what they believe you can do. And again, it came out, man. I was able to play on the team, played in Carolina, played in Washington, played in Miami. So very blessed, man. And now even with football, man, it's created a chapter in my life that I've always wanted to hold on to. And I feel like if my son, my nephew, like people around me, the kids that I work with, ever get an opportunity to go to that level, I'm always going to be a source of information, a piece of them that's rooting for them more than anybody ever will, because I know how hard it is to get to that moment.
Right. And I love the fact that you're still working with kids, and not just with the CR Metro YMCAs, but also, if you saw at the bottom of the screen, viewers, at the beginning of this segment, at the end of the segment, all of Marvin's contact information. Marvin still has camps for kids and trains kids, so check that out as well. But Marvin, in the last minute or two I have with you for this segment and this week, and we're going to have you back as always, as often as you're available, because what a great story you have, and stories. But give us your take on the Hawkeyes in the next minute or two, with how the wide receivers may be looking this year. We got some incoming freshmen like Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce IV, the whole quarterback thing. How you thinking the Hawks looking this year?
First off, Spencer Petras, man, is I think the guy. And people, a lot of times get upset with, how well they play in their first year and the different things. But no quarterback has ever had a year like Spencer Petras. He had to go right away into Big Ten play, which normally there are a couple games to kind of get acclimated to the college football season. So that's one of the hard things there. Secondly, he had a pretty good year of wins. And then when we talk about, what you really want at the quarterback position, it's okay, are we ending the game with W? And so, other than that, I think that first off, he's going to have a much better and successful year than he had last year. But I also believe that him and Tyrone Tracy are going to kind of maybe have a year the way I kind of had a year with James Vandenberg, where it's nobody's really thinking about him. But I've also reached out to Tracy and told him, I said, just so you know, Alex, I feel like you're going to have a really explosive year. And I feel like you're going to be the guy that everybody's going to be looking at to say, okay, he's the next Big Ten first-round receiver. Just because you work hard and that's what it's going to take. He said, man, I'm ready to work all summer. So you tell me when you tell me you got time, I'm ready to work. And I told him, I said, I'll be there. Don't worry. So again, I think that room and having somebody like that in that room elevates it, because I know how it did when I was there. When I came and decided that I really wanted to be a receiver, I elevated that room. I pushed DJK, I pushed Keenan Davis, I pushed all those guys around us to get better every day. Because, we only have one moment to be great. So those guys, and I think this offense and those young guys will have a great leader in Tyrone Tracy in that room. And I think they'll have a good person to follow and how he works. But I think it's going to only elevate this offense and really push them to the level they want to see and succeed. It just starts, again, with those guys.
I love to hear it. That is great optimism. And as we say our goodbyes to you here, congratulations to Amir Smith-Marset, ISM,
yes, sir.
5th round pick of the Minnesota Vikings. And
yes, sir.
We'll go through the rest of the draft with David Eichholt, our Hawkeye Insider, in the next segment. But I know that had to make you feel good. I see you smiling there, one of your fellow receivers.
It did, man. Him and Brandon Smith, man, I see big things in their future. I think that both of those guys will truly show the rest of the world what they missed out on sometimes by not throwing the ball deep to them at times.
Yeah. Marvin, time goes so quickly. I greatly appreciate the amount of time you gave us today. I look forward to catching up with you in the future. He is Marvin McNutt, Iowa Hawkeye all-time leading receiver, now sports director for the CR Metro YMCAs, and I love it. There's Marvin's information on the bottom of the screen along with mine. Marvin, as always, thank you so much. Great seeing you. Great talking with you. We'll do it again soon. And go Hawks, my friend.
Go Hawks, guys.
Thanks, Marvin. We'll be back with more Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, in just a minute.
One word means more to farmers than any other: yield. Nobody knows this better than your friend in the field, Mershman Seeds. With industry-leading seed treatments like Tripidity ST, you'll see faster emergence and more bushels per acre. Become a part of the Mershman family and see the difference in your field. Ask your dealer for superiority. Mershman Seeds.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair, upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
There is a spot for women in agriculture. There's many places for females, for female farmers. We can do a lot. Over the years, maybe we couldn't have always done everything, but there's lots of places we're finding on our dairy farm especially that females are really good at milking cows. They're really good caretakers. They're good at taking care of animals and observant and detail-oriented, which fits in well on a farm and can make an operation more successful.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, and as you can see, I've located James Moses on the screen. James, a former Iowa Hawkeye basketball playing great, was there from 1988 to 1992. James is a 1,000-point scorer, a member of that very exclusive club at the University of Iowa. James, you see all his information on the bottom of the screen there. And James, first and foremost, as always, great talking to you off the air. On the air, our mutual friend Doug Wagner has you and me on together, joining him for the Hawkeye postgame show on WMT and KXIC radio. So that's how you and I met initially. But over time, you've been on my list. Jess Settles has talked about you on this show. So first and foremost, thanks for joining me. Finally get you on the TV show. But secondly, that big grin on your face. Looks like everything's going well. Your son is in the state tournament with Dowling Catholic. You look very happy, my friend. Everything going well?
Yes, my wife Peg and I we're very excited for Jalen's opportunity. Is historic for my family because his sister Jade Rogers went to state for Kennedy. His sister Alexis Rogers went to state volleyball, but they played in Cedar Rapids there for volleyball. And then now Jalen has his opportunity. So it just completes our trio.
Well, the great thing about that is with the family being involved in that, you've moved recently from Cedar Rapids to Des Moines. Let the listeners know and the viewers know what you've been up to the past years since you've been gone in Iowa. I know you've been an agent for the Department of Corrections in the state of Iowa for the last quarter century plus. You're a youth basketball coach. You've coached high school basketball. You've been busy since your playing days. So give us a little update if you would, please.
Hey, no problem. My wife and I, we run a business called Are You Ballin'? That's where we developed young kids to be as best as they can perform. Also, I've been working for the Department of Corrections, the 6th District, where cover Benton County, Iowa County, Tama County, Jones County, Iowa County, Lynn County, and then Johnson County. So just covering those places. I've been doing that. It'll be 26 years come June 16th of this year. The Department of Corrections have been great for my growth and just been married. My wife and I are going to be celebrating 20 plus years come May the 26th of this year. So just a lot of good foundation that was here at in the state of Iowa, and having the opportunity to work with a lot of kids around the state. And on the side, I work with for Lefty Moore, who used to be a player for Iowa State, Johnny Orr, that was, and he is the director of All Iowa Attack. And it's nice to be able to work alongside of him and developing kids in the state.
Absolutely. And so, congratulations early to you and your wife, but I got to ask you this, James. A guy from the LA area comes to Iowa, and Tom Davis, and man, you know, there was a time when you were in the top 15 of scorers all time on the Iowa Hawkeye list and in that 1,000-point club, as I mentioned, but you're falling farther and farther down the list with the likes of Luca Garza, Jordan Bohannon, Joe Wieskamp. And, you know, I talked with Adam Haluska, Greg Bruner, and Kent McCausland and Jeff Horner about that. Jess Settles, too. He's like, Dave, I'm not where I used to be with this current Hawkeye group. They're knocking you guys farther down the list. But what brought you from California, the LA area, to come to Iowa and play for Tom Davis? What was the main attraction for you?
Well, one of the main attractions and what I loved about Coach Davis, he was the one that noticed my talents. I was in the 7th grade when he was at Stanford in Palo Alto, California at the university, and that's where I received my first offer from Tom Davis.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Hey, thank you, David. I appreciate being part of your broadcast.
Thanks again for tuning in to our clip show with Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. The best of the best. Man, we've got some great interviews and some great folks joining us. So I'm glad you got to see that for the first time or watch it again for a second or third time. Love to have you viewing the show. And thanks again to our advertisers and sponsors who make this show possible. And thanks to you for tuning in. So for Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, that's all from me. Thanks to all of you.